Hello and thank you for joining us today for the webinar entitled Manage Testing and Laboratory Workflows with LIMS. I'm Mrinal Kanti Chatterjee, Bioinformatics Analyst at cloudlims.com. I'm here to moderate this event. Mr. Rakil Akkari, Product Analyst at cloudlims.com, is joining us today as a presenter. Rakil, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few points so that you know how to participate in today's event. All of you are in mute mode throughout this webinar. Since this is an interactive webinar, so we encourage you to ask questions anytime during this presentation by entering them in the question box to your left and clicking send. All questions will be answered during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. We'll take as many questions as time permits. Due to time constraint, if we are unable to answer your questions today, we will answer them offline. It's now time to hand over the floor to Rakil. It's over to you, Rakil.
Thank you for the introduction, Mrinal. The main focus of our webinar today would be on the typical jobs undertaken in a testing lab, what regulations do they follow, and how does that help with the quality assurance. The need for automation of laboratory workflows and how a LIMS can help ease the testing lab operations. I will also discuss how the testing workflows can be automated right from sample accessioning and tracking, management of tests and test results, to creation of professional reports. Let me begin with a simple definition of a testing lab. A lab that performs any type of test for quantitative or qualitative effects of an analyte is a testing lab. Based on the analyte that is being investigated, the testing labs can be categorized into different sectors such as food and beverages, environmental, clinical testing, and molecular diagnostics. Also included are cannabis, pharmaceutical, forensic, petrochemical testing, and many more. Let's look at how a typical testing lab works. The food and beverage testing labs across the globe are key players ensuring the food quality and safety for consumers. These labs are crucial as they check for quality assurance by measuring food contaminants in samples. The samples are derived at critical junctures in the production lines at the manufacturing site. The measured values determine if the producers or manufacturers meet the quality standards laid down by the FDA or any in-house production. Similarly, the environmental testing labs test for a wide range of analytes in samples such as water, wastewater, air, and soil. Due to the rapid industrialization across the world, several environmental threats continue to evolve. Before discharging the industrial effluents into the surface water, they must be properly treated in accordance with the state regulations. Analyzing contaminants or identifying hazards in the environment can help labs suggest corrective actions on time and thus minimizing health risks. If we size up the healthcare sector, we find several clinical labs and molecular diagnostic centers in a global competitive canvas striving to reduce cost and accelerate the delivery on high quality services. These labs perform diverse qualitative and quantitative clinical tests and deliver the test results to clinicians and physicians, in turn helping them to evaluate and achieve a better understanding of the unique genetic makeup of both patient and diseases. Many times, specific clinical tests are outsourced to distant clinical labs having multi-specialized facilities so that the test can be performed with utmost accuracy and in minimal time. Talking about the cannabis industry, Its legalization for medical and recreational use across the United States and several other countries has led to an evident acclimatous surge in demand for cannabis testing facilities. With such increasing demand, there will be incremental test requests for cannabinoids, pesticides, terpenes, moisture, heavy metals, fungi, molds, and many more. A testing lab involves multiple operational steps, starting from sample collection. The next step would be data capture or sample accessioning. The data captured helps technicians track the samples as they are passed on to different custodians in the workflow. The sample then is processed using standard procedures that assure integrity of the sample and makes it ready to be analyzed using any analytical instruments. The experimental data is then generated, followed by data analysis and report generation. The report generated is then sent to respective clinicians or physician in quick time. The analyzed sample is either disposed or stored for further use. There are thousands of labs across the globe monitoring samples on an hourly basis so that the quality standards in the industry are maintained. The gamut of operations that the testing labs conduct is quite complex and relies majorly on two factors. It is the precision and error-free reporting. Errors left unchecked can make the results of an analysis worthless. Thus, the errors needs to be kept at minimum through careful planning and precision. The precision in turn expresses reproducibility of the results. With such complex workflows at place, each testing lab needs to follow certain standard guidelines and compliance to ensure data quality and reliability. The general guidelines are framed by regulatory bodies who assess the quality requirements. So the important question when it comes to testing labs is, what exactly are the guiding principles for quality assured testing? Most labs follow the ISO 17025 regulations. ISO 17025 is the main ISO standard used by testing and calibration labs. It covers testing and calibration performed using standard methods, non-standard methods, and lab-developed methods. In most countries, ISO 17025 is the standard for which most labs must hold accreditation in order to be deemed technically competent. Now, what are the requirements for ISO 17025 certification? First and foremost, the technical competence of technicians performing lab tests is an important factor which governs the accuracy of test results. A lab workspace should be organized so that various activities such as sample preparation, extraction, and analysis are spatially segregated. Proper ventilation of a testing lab is crucial to avoid any cross-contamination. The temperature and humidity should be monitored closely round the clock. All testing equipment required for sampling, processing, and analysis should be available in standard conditions in the lab. Additionally, the instruments requiring calibration should be calibrated to ensure accuracy of test results. Though there is no restriction as far as the selection of a test method is concerned, the test method can be determined based on the requirement of the client. Any new test method, if adopted, needs to be properly validated before implementation. Besides, there should be detailed documentation of the new method for reference and auditing purpose. The method used for testing should meet the set standards for validation such as accuracy, specificity, calibration, range limit of detection, ability to obtain the same or almost the same test results on identical test material under the same conditions. It should happen within a short interval of time and under different conditions as well. A method validation document is expected to include a detailed description of the test method used, preparation of the calibration standard, potential interferences, a brief outline of the test signature of the authorized personnel, etc. Once a method is validated, it can be used by the lab. The testing results generated using this method should be duly signed along with a date and timestamp by an approving authority. Periodical inspection of the implemented validated method is also required in order to confirm accuracy of the ongoing test. In order to ensure that the testing lab continues to be ISO 17025 compliant, they are regularly monitored through proficiency testing. If a lab shows poor performance during proficiency testing, it needs to determine the factors responsible for poor performance and take the appropriate corrective measures. The other compliance requirements for testing labs include the GLP, the Good Laboratory Practice. The primary objective of GLP principles is to promote generation of high quality test data that is validated. When data is submitted by a GLP compliant lab, it assures regulatory authorities that it corresponds to actual results obtained during a test, deeming it as reliable. GLP principles are not intended to define scientific standards, rather, it defines the quality standards for conducting a test or study, data collection, and reporting of results. NELAC. An environmental lab will be recognized as a NELAC accredited lab with the generation of environmental lab data of known and documented quality. This data from the sampling process should be generated through the adoption of national performance standards accredited under NELAB program. CLIA, the Clinical Laboratory Improvement Amendments Program. It regulates labs that perform testing on human specimens in order to ensure accurate and reliable test results. FDA's 21 CFR Part 11. It defines the criteria under which electronic records and electronic signatures are considered trustworthy, reliable, and equivalent to paper records and handwritten signatures executed on paper. HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, sets the standard for sensitive patient data protection. Companies that deal with protected health information must have physical, network, and process security measures in place and follow them to ensure HIPAA compliance. Let's consider how LIMS helps follow HIPAA compliance. In the United States, the HIPAA governs the privacy and protection of medical information and health records. The LIMS has the capability to address major security elements such as preventing unauthorized access and alteration to patients' medical records. The LIMS can electronically mask the data from unauthorized access and allow data to authorized individuals. It also creates an audit trail on viewing and altering of such data. In order to develop an effective security program, all users in the system leave an electronic signature for viewing and changing restricted information. Through the optimized testing procedures, the testing labs follow certain protocol for maintaining quality assurance. The SOP, or the Standard Operating Procedure. It outlines step-by-step instructions to help lab personnel carry out routine testing operations. Proper labeling of reagents. It is essential for any testing lab because it enables lab personnel to quickly identify details of a reagent such as its concentration, expiration date, storage requirements, etc. A clinical testing lab must have documented procedures for collection of specimens, transportation, and receiving of specimens. This is imperative because the accuracy of test results will depend on the integrity of the sample submitted to the lab for testing. Secure archival of experimental data and results is also crucial for auditing purposes. So what are some of the common data management issues that the testing lab face? Use of paper-based methods for data management is in testing labs hinders its operational efficiency as there is too much data to manage. This in turn requires enormous amount of manual efforts that may lead to transcriptional errors. Imagine the time and human resource that data tracking would consume along with the data sharing concerns. Besides, data retrieval for reporting, auditing, and collaboration is quite laborious, and its inconsistency in complying with regulatory standards affects the lab's competence in the industry. With advances in technology, there is an increasing in data volumes and sample throughput. The testing lab will in turn seek to streamline their operations and cut costs by modernizing their laboratory management approach. This would help them to efficiently manage, track, and centralize their data. An automated lab reduces the risk of human error and allows personnel to be deployed for core lab jobs, thereby saving time and money, in addition to improving work efficiency. It also helps in presenting the lab in a more professional manner to various collaborators and granting authorities by enabling end-to-end sample and workflow management. It assures traceability of results and maintains data integrity by following standard lab practices. The results are achieved faster, are far more accurate, reproducible, and reliable. The data is easier to store, trace, and access over time and across experiments so that lab processes can be monitored and improved to increase operational efficiency. Informatics facilitates lab automation with the development of bioinformatics tools for managing and processing lab data. LIMS or Lab Information Management System is a software that allows you to effectively manage lab data, testing workflows, and data tracking to improve operational efficiency. Using a LIMS for your lab not only automates workflows but also integrates instruments for data exchange. There are several reliable LIMS products in the market. The cloud-based LIMS is gaining prominence over the traditional on-premise tools due to its service advantages. Meticulous documentation is a must for testing labs throughout the sample testing procedure. Right from sample collection, LIMS allows you to automate sample and the associated data management process using distinct intuitive modules in the software. Also, the activities performed on the sample are recorded electronically. LIMS is equipped with robust functionality and configuration options. It allows you to capture sample data by configuring the required data fields specific to the sample and its source. When you create sample aliquots or derivatives during processing, they will be linked to their parent samples in the LIMS to keep track of their genealogy. Upon saving values for the configured fields, LIMS allows 360-degree sample traceability such as unique identification, barcode-based tracking, audit trails, and more, so that you could retrieve the sample information at any time easily and accurately. LIMS also features distinct modules for streamlining lab testing data such as samples, storage locations, testing, test results, reporting, shipping, sample disposal, etc. Using an API, LIMS enables data exchange with integrated instruments across these modules. Different testing labs report different analytes based on their specialization. Usually the outcome of a single experimentation provides multitude of analyte values. The accurate reporting of the analyte values are crucial as the future course of action is determined based on these values. A LIMS will help you configure your reports to include analytes and set flagging sets based on the experiment you chose. For example, in the cannabis testing industry, potency testing is a common testing package to analyze the cannabinoid levels present in the sample. Likewise, in clinical testing labs, a single sample is tested for different analytes. A blood sample is tested for its complete blood cell count, glucose level, thyroid levels, lipid profiling, electrolytes, and many more. A LIMS will help you create a reporting template for multiple analytes along with flagging sets. The flagging sets allows you to set value limits based on which the analytes are flagged when the limits are crossed. In the case of clinical labs, the flagging sets are crucial as they decide the future course of action in terms of treatment. The LIMS can create multiple customized reporting templates which can be saved and used as per the test under question. A chain of custody is required to assure reliability of reported results. As a part of quality assurance, it is important to know the custodian of the samples under testing as it passes through the steps of the testing workflow. Maintaining a COC, as it is called, is laborious without the help of a LIMS. Electronic records and signatures are created in the LIMS as the sample moves on to the different stages in the workflow. The extent of automation and data reliability can vary. Also, FDA and EPA compliant electronic signatures and system security are rare. More typically than not, it's not the incorrect testing procedure or a wrong sample that ends up in a wrong report. The standard reporting format must be implemented for accurate results reporting. A LIMS typically helps reducing manpower cost by offering the ability to create custom and standard test reports that are well organized and intuitive, and which are authenticated with digital signatures. LIMS also provides a provision to include company logo for report customization. The report generation module should be flexible to pull information from various other modules in the LIMS as per the user requirement. For example, the user might just want to include the name of the client in one report and the name and the address in another. The report module should allow the user to save multiple templates that one can use as per the report under question. Testing labs are under constant pressure to reduce cost, enhance efficiency, and constantly improvise the quality of results. These labs need to effectively manage the entire life cycle of each test sample, which includes sample accessioning, recording tests performed on the samples, managing experimental data and test results, besides permanent disposal of samples if required. These labs are also subjected to compliance such as ISO 17025, GLP, and are required to follow them in order to receive international recognition from regulatory authorities. Managing lab data and meeting the regulatory requirements can be challenging, time consuming, and tedious. A cost-effective cloud-based LIMS seamlessly aids testing labs in managing big data, automating lab workflows, and in meeting regulatory compliance, thereby saving time, cost, and resources. Thank you for your attention. Any questions?
Thank you, Rahul, for the presentation. We will now begin answering the questions that we received via email. Thereafter, if any of you submit any questions, we'll take up those questions. As a reminder, you can still submit questions to the questions box. We have a number of interesting questions, so I'll move straight on to these. The first question that we received is, how a cloud-based LIMS is a technologically advanced alternative to on-premise LIMS?
All right. So to answer this question, let's put a picture together where we are coupling a cloud-based SaaS with LIMS and how it benefits immensely. Now, cloud is nothing but a virtual space that enables users across the globe to store and access their shared pool of data, resources, and programs. Now, these are otherwise stored on a computer hard drive. Now, cloud, they use a network layered approach to connect users' computer to resources centralized in a data center. Software vendors offering LIMS solution, they usually prefer public cloud model where the customers pay only for the CPU cycles, the storage, or the bandwidth they consume. Now, some of the leading public cloud providers who allow hosting of web-based LIMS are Amazon Web Services, Google Compute Engine, Microsoft Azure, and IBM Software. Now, unlike traditional LIMS, SaaS substantially saves expenses on maintenance, the purchase of infrastructure, to provide you technical support, upgrades, and payroll. Thus, there is no initial setup cost, and the LIMS application can be readily accessible using a web browser. So, and these are available on a very affordable monthly subscription. And as your requirement increases over time, you can always scale this up for number of users or even with the versions that are available usually with the LIMS vendors.
Thank you, Rahul, for your insights. The second question that we received is, how a LIMS helps in meeting regulatory guidelines?
Okay, let's consider the example of the cannabis industry. The cannabis compliance norm demand accounting for every unit of sample involved in testing. That is right from the reception through the conception of these samples for test to its sale and disposal. So, so the amount that comes to a lab first, it has to be accounted, followed by how much amount has been going for a particular test, followed by which after you complete your test, how much of the sample is left or destroyed. Now, the quality of data management tools such as MS Excel sheets or other software is severely put to test against such stringent regulatory guidelines. There is absolutely no space for errors. A calculation can easily go wrong due to manual errors. Now, what happens when you implement a LIMS? The sample weights are automatically calculated as per the testing workflows. Thereby, such automated laboratory workflows support sample traceability following state and local laws. The state compliance systems are also offering APIs to integrate LIMS for achieving these regulatory compliance with ease. So you have systems like Medtrack, MJ Freeway, and BioTrack THC offering their APIs so that there is a seamless transfer of information between the LIMS and these regulatory softwares. Eventually, LIMS would be a compulsory requirement in meeting state regulations for accredited labs, weighing the hard and fast scrutiny of cannabis supplied to the public. Now, let's consider HIPAA compliance. As I had mentioned in the webinar, HIPAA mandates strict confidentiality of patient information. As per the HIPAA privacy rule, all the data management systems, such as LIMS that oversee health information, must secure data with passwords, data encryption, and other technical safeguards. Invariably, any company that deals with protected health information must ensure that information is secure and no unauthorized personnel can gain access to the LIMS. For example, in our software services, users can provide specific access privileges to other users in the system. So let's consider that you are the master admin and there is a technician as well in your lab. So being the master admin, you can configure the system such that technician has limited information to the private data of the patients. So, and similarly for meeting GLP regulations, LIMS can help labs to maintain a record of resources. For example, its facilities, the equipments available in the lab, which are employed to perform the test. The details about the test item and test system as well is recorded. The protocol used to conduct the test, besides these results are also saved in the LIMS.
Thank you, Rahul, for answering the question. Unfortunately, the time is up for today. Um, we are unable to take up any further questions at this moment. However, we'll reply to your questions as soon as possible. If you have any questions, you can contact us via email. You can write to us at support@cloudlimbs.com. I would like to thank you all for joining us today. Have a great day ahead.